Okay, this is a quick review of the synthesis essay. Okay, this is where you write an argument in which you synthesize other sources to support your argument. Those sources are supplemental. Okay, this is still about your ideas, your claim, your thoughts, but you weave into it other sources. Um, a really good thing to do for this is to use pathos or ethos to draw the reader in. That's really rewarded by the synthesis essay. You need to establish your position clearly, right? This is important in every AP prompt, that you really make it clear what your position is. Um, it's a good idea to use a cultural or historical allusion. That really demonstrates scope. It allows you to get those complexity points that AP talks about. Don't simply restate the prompt. Avoid that formulaic regurgitation that you learned a long, long time ago, and you should be able to move past. You should be able to move past. Make sure to develop the key issue of the prompt. A lot of times the prompt will be tricky. Make sure you're focused on the right thing. We've talked about how the prompts can be tricky. I go back to that space exploration synthesis example that was part of the class, and some students said, here's why we should explore space. Instead, the prompt actually said, what are the most important issues when considering space exploration? So be careful. When you're writing the synthesis essay, you're right for an audience that doesn't already agree with you. Okay, so address the opposition. Make sure you address the strongest argument of the opposition. Make sure you're balanced with your language. Use concise expression. AP appreciates wit and sarcasm. Make sure you use your own rhetorical strategies. Make sure you're thinking about how you use the appeals. Use reasoning through syllogisms, so some of that logic exercise, and make sure you have varied syntax. Don't just write period to period to period. You're trying to demonstrate that you're a college writer and you have more control than that. Make sure you're using some appositive participles, absolutes, or adjective clauses. Make sure you're introducing information not just covered by the sources. So that's that. Avoid just summarizing the sources. You want to use the sources to support you, not just say this is what source A is, this is what source B is. Make sure that you're using credible sources. They will occasionally have sources in there that are not that credible. If you built your whole argument around a blog, how credible is that? Make sure you analyze the sources, not just summarizing, and don't just repeat their language, because then that really leads you into just summary. It's a good idea to use two sources in one paragraph to support one point. That's really supplemental, right? If you've got your point and you're pulling from this source and you're pulling from this source, that's you as a writer using them instead of just providing something in front of a reader. Make sure you signal in and signal out effectively, and you can be creative with that. So um, for instance, one of the sources from the space synthesis essay was a NASA photo. And leading with that, a photo from a NASA archive, blah, 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 that is rhetorical in that explaining that source helps the reader feel, know, and believe what you want the reader to feel, know, and believe. Don't use sources for the first or last sentence of body paragraphs. If you use a source for the first or last sentence of a body paragraph, it's either leading the idea, the paragraph, it should be you leading it, or if you use it at the end and you don't speak about it, it's speaking for itself, then you're not using it. So that's a little trick to make sure you're always using the sources. It's a good idea to use more sources than is required and to paraphrase them or quote selectively. Don't put big chunks of quotes. Quote what has to be quoted. Start and end each body paragraph with a topic sentence and use clear transitions. Conjunctive adverbs are great here, right? However, therefore, furthermore, in addition, right? And you put a comma after those because they are a way to connect complete thoughts with some kind of rhetorical purpose between them. In the conclusion, don't just summarize, but connect to a broader principle and make sure you're really crafting your language. Having a good last line that demonstrates some creativity in the way it's written, that uses some allusion, that has some kind of balance or parallelism to it, the AP board really responds to. So if you didn't understand anything in this little review, again, I want you to ask questions during the DBA, but it's just a short little primer of the things that were talked about all semester long, and just to recall before you head into the test.